Have you ever stared at the task you know you need to do, the one that could change everything, and felt your body go completely still, not out of calm, out of resistance, that invisible wall between you and the thing you fear most? You open your laptop, then close it. You plan, then delay. You think about starting, and then somehow an hour passes and nothing has happened. This is not laziness. This is not a character flaw. This is your brain doing exactly what it was designed to do: protect you from discomfort. And that protection is quietly destroying your life. Most people are running from pain. Every procrastinated task, every avoided conversation, every skipped workout, they all have the same root. The brain associates that action with discomfort, and so it pulls you away before you even begin. The problem is not that you are weak. The problem is that no one ever taught you to use pain strategically, to treat discomfort not as a signal to retreat, but as a signal to advance. That skill, the ability to move toward difficulty on purpose, is the difference between the life you have and the life you keep imagining. What you are about to learn is not about motivation. Motivation is temporary. It shows up when you feel good and disappears the moment things get hard. What we are talking about here is something deeper, something more durable. It is the rewiring of the relationship between your mind and difficulty itself. When you understand how to do that, hard things stop being obstacles. They become instruments. Let us start with a man named Ryu. He is not a monk or a warrior. He is an ordinary person, maybe someone who looks a lot like you. He wakes up every morning with a list of things he knows he should do, things that matter: exercise, finish the project, have the difficult conversation, study, build, create. And every single morning, he finds a reason not to begin. Sometimes it is fatigue. Sometimes it is the feeling that he is not ready. Sometimes it is nothing at all. Just a slow drift toward the easier option, the scroll, the series, the comfortable stillness. Ryu is not broken. His brain is simply optimized for short-term survival in a world that demands long-term sacrifice. And until he understands how to intervene in that process, his days will keep passing, with the quiet guilt of someone who knows they are capable of more, but cannot seem to access it. That guilt is important. It means the awareness is there. The capacity is there. What is missing is the strategy. The first thing you must understand is this: discomfort is not a warning sign, it is a doorway. Every meaningful thing in your life is located on the other side of a feeling you do not want to have. The workout that builds the body you want is located on the other side of the physical pain of effort. The conversation that deepens the relationship is located on the other side of the emotional discomfort of vulnerability. The project that builds your legacy is located on the other side of the mental strain of deep focus. Your brain has been trained to interpret that discomfort as danger. Your job is to retrain it to interpret that discomfort as direction. Musashi, the greatest warrior in the history of Japan, understood this at a level most people never reach. He did not seek comfort. He sought the precise edge of his own limitation and trained there, daily, relentlessly. He once said that the way of the warrior means knowing both the pen and the sword, meaning that discipline must be total, not selective. You cannot be soft in some areas and sharp in others. Softness spreads. The moment you give your brain permission to retreat from one type of difficulty, you are teaching it a pattern that will bleed into everything else. Ryu discovered this pattern after months of watching his own behavior. He noticed something terrifying. The days he avoided the difficult task, the rest of the day also collapsed. The one retreat gave his brain permission to retreat. Everywhere. One postponed workout became a poor diet choice. One avoided conversation became hours of distraction. The compromise was never isolated. It was always a signal that unlocked a chain of further compromises. That is the architecture of a small life. Not one single catastrophic failure, but thousands of small surrenders, each one barely noticeable, all of them building a cage. Now here is where the strategy begins. Ryu decided to run an experiment. For 30 days, he would do the hardest thing on his list first. Not the easiest, not the most comfortable, the one that activated the most resistance, the one that made his stomach tighten just thinking about it. He called it the pain-first protocol, not because he enjoyed suffering, but because he understood something critical. The brain's resistance to difficulty peaks at the moment of beginning and drops rapidly once the action starts. The fear of the task is almost always worse than the task itself. On the first morning, he sat down to work on the project he had been avoiding for 3 months. His brain offered him 17 reasons to do it later. He noticed each one and wrote them down. Then he opened the document and wrote one sentence. Just one. The resistance did not disappear, but it shrank. Because the brain, once confronted with evidence that the feared thing did not kill you, begins to recalibrate. It updates its threat assessment. What was coded as danger slowly gets recoded as familiar. And familiarity, even with difficult things, is the foundation of discipline. This is what most people get wrong about discipline. They believe it is the result of being a certain type of person, strong, determined, naturally driven. But discipline is not a personality trait. It is a trained response. It is what happens when you have confronted discomfort often enough that your brain no longer treats it as an emergency. The disciplined person is not someone who feels no resistance. They are someone who has built a relationship with resistance so deep that they no longer need it to disappear before they move. There is a principle that Ryu began to apply that changed everything. He stopped asking himself if he felt ready. He started asking himself a different question. What is the minimum action I can take right now toward this thing I am avoiding? Not the whole project, not the perfect version, just the first step, just the opening of the file, just the putting on of the shoes, just the sitting down at the desk without the phone. The brain's resistance system is triggered by the perception of scale. When you make the action small enough, the resistance does not fully activate. You slip past the alarm and begin moving before the retreat response can fully fire. This technique is deceptively simple and almost impossibly effective because movement creates momentum, and momentum changes the neurochemical environment of the brain. Once you are in motion, the dopamine system activates. What felt like a wall moments ago starts to feel like a path. The body that did not want to run is now running. The mind that did not want to write is now writing. The person who could not begin is now 20 minutes deep into the very thing that terrified them. All because they did not try to defeat the resistance. They simply made the entry point too small for the resistance to defend. But Ryu hit a second wall. Not the wall of beginning, the wall of continuing. There are tasks that require sustained discomfort. Not just the discomfort of starting, but the discomfort of staying. Of pushing through fatigue, of sitting with the struggle past the point where quitting feels rational. This is where most people stop. They begin, they feel the initial relief of movement, and then the deeper resistance arrives. The kind that says, you have done enough, you have tried. You can stop now and still feel good about yourself, because at least you started. Musashi called this the moment of the second crossing, the battle after the battle. In a duel, the most dangerous moment is not the beginning, it is the instant after the first exchange, when both fighters have tasted the fight and the body begins measuring whether to continue. The warrior who hesitates in that moment, who lets the body's plea for safety override the mission, is the warrior who loses. Not because they lacked skill, because they lacked the trained capacity to move through the second wave of resistance. For Ryu, the second wave arrived reliably at the 20-minute mark, every single time. He would be working, the initial momentum carrying him, and then something would shift. The mind would begin looking for exits. A notification would seem important. A memory would surface. A question about whether any of this mattered would quietly arrive and begin expanding. He started calling this the danger zone, the moment the brain stages its second attempt to pull him back to comfort. What he learned to do in that moment changed him permanently. He stopped fighting the thought. Machiavelli understood this principle in a completely different context. The man who wastes energy resisting what is already happening loses to someone who redirects it. Ryu applied the same logic to his own mind. When the thought that said stop arrived, he did not argue with it. He acknowledged it, named it, and then returned. This is harder than it sounds and easier than trying to silence the mind entirely. You are not suppressing. You are redirecting. The thought comes in, you say, yes, I see you, and then you move back to the work. Practiced daily, this becomes automatic. The second wave still arrives, but it no longer has authority over you. It is just weather. You are the climate. After 30 days, Ryu noticed something unexpected. The tasks he had been avoiding did not just become easier to begin. They began producing different results. The work he did in a state of committed discomfort was better than the work he had done in comfortable conditions. There was a sharpness to it, a pressure-tested quality that softer effort could not produce. He began to understand something that changes the entire relationship with difficulty. The quality of the output is often directly proportional to the quality of the resistance that was overcome to produce it. This is the secret that high performers know and almost never say directly. They do not do hard things in spite of the discomfort. They do hard things because of it. The discomfort is not a tax you pay on the way to the result. The discomfort is the forge. What comes through it is different in kind from what is produced without it. Diamonds are not found in soft places. Now let us bring this into your life with precision. There are 3 types of productive pain that you must learn to distinguish because they require slightly different approaches. The first is initiation pain. This is the resistance at the moment of beginning. It is almost always disproportionate to the actual difficulty of the task. The way to meet initiation pain is with minimum viable action. Make the entry so small the brain cannot fully object. 1 sentence, 1 minute, 1 repetition. Begin before the resistance can fully mount its defense. The second is endurance pain. This is the discomfort of continuing past the point where comfort returns. The way to meet endurance pain is with time commitment, not outcome commitment. Do not commit to finishing. Commit to working for 20 minutes, then 20 more. The mind can endure almost anything when the container is defined and small. Endurance pain is defeated not by willpower in the dramatic sense, but by the repeated small choice to remain. The third is identity pain. This is the deepest kind. It is the discomfort that arises when the difficult work forces you to confront who you are not yet. When the writing reveals that you are not as skilled as you believed. When the workout reveals how far you are from the body you want. When the project reveals the gap between your current capacity and what you are trying to build. Identity pain is the most dangerous because it is the most personal, and the way to meet it is with radical honesty and forward focus. You are not where you want to be. That is true. And the only response to that truth that produces anything is the commitment to remain in the work anyway. Ryu built all 3 of these capacities, not because he was special, because he was willing to stop treating discomfort as the enemy and start treating it as the curriculum. Every hard task was a lesson. Every moment of resistance overcome was a deposit in the account of who he was becoming. There is a question that changes everything once you begin asking it consistently. Not, how do I feel right now? But, who do I become by doing this anyway? The first question points inward toward the current emotional state, which is almost always an unreliable guide for action. The second question points forward toward identity and consequence. It anchors the decision in something larger than how you feel in this moment. Musashi ended his life as a man who had mastered the sword and the mind simultaneously. He did not reach that level by avoiding difficulty. He reached it by building a relationship with difficulty so deep and so consistent that difficulty became his most trusted teacher. He sought the hard practice when the easy one was available. He chose the cold, mountain over the warm inn, not as punishment, as instruction. This is available to you, not eventually, not after some transformation that has not happened yet. Now, in the next task, you have been avoiding. In the next conversation, you have been postponing. In the next morning where the choice is between beginning hard or drifting soft. The brain that avoids discomfort is not a broken brain. It is a trained brain. And what has been trained in one direction can be retrained in another. Every time you move toward the difficult thing, you are casting a vote for the version of yourself who does not need conditions to be perfect before acting. Every single time. No matter how small the action, the deposit is real. Hard things are not the enemy. They are the curriculum. The life you want is not on the other side of comfort. It is on the other side of the consistent willingness to be uncomfortable in service of something that matters. Ryu, after 30 days, did not become someone who felt no resistance. He became someone who no longer needed it to disappear before he moved. That is the whole transformation. That is the entire shift, and it is available to everyone willing to begin.